Recording started.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is the online teaching conference. This session is called So Much Open Courseware, So Little Time. I'm with the Open Doors group in the College Open Textbooks program. I'll be giving you an update on that. And just for a minute or two, even though it's not going to be recorded, it's not going to reach the microphone, so I'll need to repeat. If we could just have people say who they are, what college they're from, or what organization they're from, and we'll give the people who just came in a chance to sit down. So if the lady with the green shirt on would start.
I'm Alexis Alexander. I'm the assistant coordinator at Courseware colleges, and I teach a series of courses from the teachers and how to teach online. I've been staff development officer for 4 years before colleges.
Okay, well, I'm not going to be able to remember all that, but this lady is a distance ed coordinator at Laney and what other college? Merritt College? Oakland, okay, and the gentleman in front of her?
John, I teach at LA City College Civilization.
Okay, this is John at LA City College, and he teaches civilization. That's a great sounding class. We want to have him give a talk sometime.
My name is Ross Paulberg, and I'm actually out of the K-12 system, so I'm an ROP director, and we're here trying to learn a little bit more about online education from Lake County.
Okay, so this gentleman's from Lake County. He's in the K-12 system. And what is an RO?
Regional Occupational Programs, coordinating the career technical education courses.
Okay. So vocational, that's excellent. We'll be talking a little bit about vocational today. The man next to you?
I'm Peter Howell from Gavilan College, Gilroy. Part-time computer science teacher and part-time helper out Becky for the program.
Okay, so this is Peter from Gavilan College, and he has 2 or 3 roles there. Lady in front of him?
I'm Lynn Wright from San Diego City College. I'm in the English department. I teach English online and on campus, and I'm also the online faculty mentor for City College.
Okay, this is Gwen from San Diego City College, and English, at least, is what I can remember. This is really a great active listening skill building for me to try to remember this. The lady in the front.
Martha Mills, Dean of Distributed Ed and Media Services for Yuba Community College District, including a campus up in Lake.
Absolutely.
Okay, this is Martha from Yuba, and my guess is the microphone picked her up, so I'm not going to say repeat what she said. Go ahead.
I'm Zach Matthews. I teach music and run the music lab at Pasadena City College.
This is Zach from Pasadena City College who teaches music.
Hi, I'm Tom from Maricosta, teach business.
Tom from Maricosta teaches business.
I'm Kevin Hughes from Oxnard College. I teach history.
Kevin Hughes from Oxnard College and teaches history, and the man who came in. Janelle Smith teaches guidance courses, and he's a counselor at what college? Merced College. Excellent. We've got people from across the state. This is great. Our facilitator will introduce herself, Marty Atkinson, or I will just say Marty. We all know Marty from Outland and from these conferences in the past. So you may want to get up and leave because I'm not going to do what I said I would do in the blurb. It's false advertising, okay? And I'll tell you why. I was going to do a nice matrix of the various open courseware repositories in the world against some criteria. And I've done this many times for open textbook repositories. And I did my best to make it interesting. I called it Goldilocks and the 13 repositories. And there were these bad bears in the woods and all this stuff, but still, it was pretty boring. And this would have been really boring for me, and I said, if it's really boring for me, it's going to be really, really boring for them. So, and there was another reason, and you'll see this as we get in later. I have this wonderful way of doing condensed business book reading. My husband checks out business books from the Palo Alto Library. He reads them and then tells me about them. It's very inexpensive. It's very efficient. It keeps us from talking about silly things like who's going to buy groceries this week. And so recently he's been reading a book that talks about how we miss opportunities when we're together, when we're face-to-face situations. And I'll talk about that a little bit more. And I said, let's make use of this opportunity when we're together. A few years ago, my colleague from De Anza College, Barbara Lowski, and I went to the Open Ed conference in Vancouver. And it was suggested to us that we have everybody in the room sit and tweet each other on our cell phones. And I'm a telephony engineer, and I said, this is absurd. We do our very best to invent telephone systems that simulate face-to-face conversations, and now we're going to have a face-to-face conversation situation and everybody's going to be tweeting? It didn't make sense. So I said, let's not have something that you could do on your own looking at a matrix of courseware. So we're going to do something more fun. I will absolutely create a matrix of open courseware repositories and put it on one of our websites, and then you can have that. So what we are going to do, I'll give you an update on College Open Textbooks and the Open Doors group. And I'm going to contrast digital, free, and open. And unfortunately in this conference, they've been getting a lot of equating. Digital equals open equals free. It's not true. I'm going to talk about the difference between open courseware and open courses. And then you should be asking, because I'm going to talk a lot about instructorless courses, and you're going to say, this is an online teaching conference. Why are you talking about anything that's instructorless? And then I will give you some criteria, and that'll be used in the boring diagram later. And then we will do an exercise to make sure that everybody gets actively participating. That'll be a little challenging with this microphone and some, but we'll make it work. And I'll talk about that book, which is called Alone Together. And then finally, I'll announce a new service that ODG-COT is going to offer to everyone. Okay, just before I do that, any questions or comments or anybody want to leave? Because I'm not going to do that boring chart. Okay. And I do understand if you have flights or you have a carpool or something, if you have to leave, that's fine. Okay, so, and this is a busy slide, and it kind of breaks the rules of making nice Steve Jobs style slides or TED video style slides, but I'll try to just summarize it very quickly. College Open Textbooks, been around since early 2008. Our charter is to get awareness, adoptions, and affordability of open textbooks. We have a number of organizations, about 17, who are members of our collaborative. We've taught a lot of community college students in Florida, community college staff and faculty in Florida, Washington, California, Baltimore, Detroit, and online, both synchronous and asynchronous, about open textbooks, about open educational resources, and so on. We had a lot of nice grants. We got 4 grants from Hewlett, which is almost unheard of. Usually they give you 1 or 2, and then you're supposed to go self-sustaining. We had some corporate grants. A couple of other government agencies gave us grants. Workplace Learning Resources Center, some of you may know that organization. We were part of Foothill De Anza Community College District, and my badge ended up with that on here. But we moved out of FHDA just a year ago into the Silicon Valley Education Foundation. It's a K-12 organization that serves Santa Clara County, funded by grants from corporations and foundations, and it addresses students who are struggling, who may drop out of high school, or they will maybe finish high school, but they won't go to college. And so it's doing remedial style math programs in the summer, STEM programs in the summer. Not much in the area of other subjects like English, but a lot of math and science. And they've been a wonderful sponsor for us. The paperwork compared to in a community college is a breeze. We hand them a receipt, they give us money. It's just very simple. And we miss Foothill. We miss De Anza. So Hewlett challenged us to be self-sustaining, and we've got some self-sustaining ideas and projects in process. What we've accomplished, I had on the previous slide, we have 3 websites, collegeopentextbooks.org has 750 links to open textbooks that are appropriate to community colleges, organized by disciplines. You can go to the press room on our site and see our recent 12-month report, see some things we did with communities of discipline and communities of practice and adoptions and so on. We have a wonderful collection of guest blog posts called the Hats Off to Georgia, Hats Off to British Columbia, Hats Off to Washington, Hats Off to Florida, and so on, about open textbook and OER programs in those states. And we just got this new video. I was going to play it, but I'm going to skip it. A student came to our meeting in April. He created this video. He videotaped several of us. He ended up just capturing and using in the video Mitchell Levy, who's the co-director with me, and he interspersed it with pictures of education and some great music, entered it in the contest called Why Open Ed is Important, or Why Open Ed Matters. There are many videos entered in that contest, and we're all waiting to see who the judges choose. There's also a People's Choice Award, which is much smaller than the Judges Award, so you might want to go visit that video, and from there you can go see all the other videos that were submitted for the contest. So Open Doors Group has a broader charter than College Open Textbooks. It goes throughout lifetime of learning, K-12 to seniors, and I'm not talking about seniors in school, but seniors in life. It is the umbrella for College Open Textbooks and for the Open Doors Group Consulting, which is one of our ways of making some sustaining revenue. We've done 3 grant submissions, actually 4, 2 to Gates. We lost them all, but we're determined and we have some material to do grant submissions. And then this is really important. We became a publisher on the Academic Pub website. Is anybody familiar with Academic Pub? Okay, it's an organization, it's a for-profit company, part of an organization called Shared Book. And Shared Book is a cool bit of technology that will take almost any kind of input and format a book, a bound textbook, properly. If you send your PDFs off to Lulu or Coop, they'll come back looking awful. They'll run into the margins, because they're not laid out for a bound textbook. And this tool can do it so quickly. And so teachers use Academic Pub to create course packs, and they can pull in content from publishers, from newspapers. Academic Pub clears the copyright, adds the cost of the copyright to the book. And we're busy putting open content up there. We became a publisher. If some of you were in LeBaron's talk, you saw that one of the Steinberg bills is for an open textbook repository for California. And he mentioned $25 million. This would be free. It would not only be free, but it would give money to the creators of the open content and the adopters of the open content, and some back to our program as well. So we have these chapters up there, and you can pull them into your course packs. We're also making complete books, and we've made 2, Project Management Skills for All Careers and Introductory Sociology. These were built on open textbooks that were in existence. The project management was built on project management for scientists and engineers out of Houston. We added a whole section at the beginning about where you can use project management skills in 10 different careers, and a lot of open licensed photographs as well. And the Introductory Sociology book is a Creative Commons BY licensed, CC BY licensed sociology textbook from Utah, and it's that's the most open license short of public domain. And it was taken by Catherine Coleman and Ann Marenko at College of the Canyons. They copy edited it because the 2 Utah professors didn't do that. They changed the order of the chapters. They changed some of the slant of the book, and then we took it. There was no bound copy available, and Ann and Catherine's version was locked in their learning management system. Nobody could get at it. So we took their PDFs, created this book. It's $16 in an e-reader version. Our program gets 10 of that. It's about $21 in black and white, and it's about $40 in color, which is what this is. So I'll pass that around. So this is both a sustaining revenue project for us. It's also a big service to students. Students still prefer, in the latest survey by Student Perks, bound copies 3-to-1 over e-copies and e-reader books and online books. So we're providing a service. The competitive book is $80 to $90, so they're saving money.
Just curious, do the students say why they prefer the bound?
This survey was done by Student Perks in the summer of 2010, and they surveyed, I think, 1,200 students. There were a number of reasons. One of them is not having continuous access to the internet, high-speed access to the internet, sharing computers with their family, or not having a computer at home at all, and limited hours at the library and the media centers where they could get on a computer. I know I go to Sunnyvale Public Library, 250 computers, and there's a waiting line of students waiting to use those computers. So that's one reason. If the book can't be downloaded as a PDF, then you can't work offline, and many of them cannot be. So those are some of the, they want to ride in it, they want to take it on the bus, and we all expect this to do a complete shift, and we just don't know when. 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, because of the handheld devices. Because we had a fire drill at Foothill, and everybody's in the parking lot working on their smartphone or their pad or something. You know, I'm not sure they were all working. Some of them were probably, you know, doing Angry Birds. But there will be a change. It'll be the other direction, Marty. But we just don't know when. And in the meantime, there's $20 billion being spent on textbooks. So why shouldn't we have some of that come into the community college programs? Why shouldn't we have the students paying $30 instead of $100, $200, $300? And everybody wins. Everybody wins. So this is our staff. I don't want to, you know, I don't know that you know any of these people, but I want to point out a couple of things. Our charter for the last 4 years has been to get adoptions of open textbooks, and yet we never put budget into that, and we never put a staff person in charge of adoptions. And Charles is a fantastic guy. He was our peer reviews manager for a while. He's come from industry, computer scientist and so on, a little burned out in industry, has enough money to help us out, thinking about going back to work. Quite a bit younger than me, and yet he's really great. He did peer reviews, and then recently he did that sociology book. He was the project manager for the sociology book. The project management book took us 6 months. Charles spent a month doing the sociology book. So he's a real find, and this is a really important thing to emphasize adoptions. Keith Dick lives half the year in Germany, half the year in Silicon Valley. He's taken over our 3 websites. Liz Tadman's going to manage, and she's from the publishing industry, so she's a great person to be managing our academic pub. And then Randy Fisher, some of you may know him. He's in Ottawa. He's Wiki Randy on Wiki Educator, and he's taken over knowledge management in our communities of interest, I should have said communities of practice. And so we're an international organization, and I'm very proud of the fact all these people are working for no pay, anywhere from 15 to, depending on how much I wrangle them, for, you know, some of them, at least we expect them to work at least 20 hours a month, but some of them work a lot more than that. Okay, this is my story, and I certainly won't bore you with it. Just a couple of quick things. I was in industry. I'm still in industry. I got into education when I did not see any education for technical support. How much of our economy is services? Anybody want to guess? I have some books to give away. The closest answer. 40%? 30, 40. Another answer? 60, 70, 65. Well, Barron would win, but he already has the book. So who was high below? Just the 65, Marty? You get a book. Cool. Okay. So it actually depends on whether you look at employment or GDP. 80 to 85%. 10% manufacturing, building objects. Okay. 80 to 85% services, and the rest is agriculture and mining. So why is agriculture so small? 4%. I mean, when Thomas Jefferson was around, it was probably 96%. So why is it so small? Are we all starving to death? technology, automation, productivity. And the same thing with manufacturing. I mean, in the Industrial Revolution, manufacturing was huge. It's much smaller now because it's so much more productive. And it still blows me away. You go to the store, you can buy a hairdryer for $10. When I was a kid, hairdryers were $100, okay? And yet services, where does your budget go? My budget goes to car repair guy, the gardener, the eye doctor, the dentist. That's where my money goes. And then there's financial services, on and on. Health and education are the two really growing sectors, and they're services. And yet the business schools are still trying to teach people how to manage the production of objects. So I got excited about this, got San Jose State to offer a certificate program in technical support management. IBM is subsidizing a lot of business schools to teach services management because it's 50% of their revenue and more than 50% of their profits come from services. And, I don't understand why people get excited and say, gosh, we don't build cars, that's such a tragedy. Are cars any more important than telecommunications or other things that are services? Big question. Another reason why so many services is software has now become a service instead of an object. It's in the cloud. So it's no longer an object. Okay, so the class I taught, I was on, are any of you familiar with the Computer Technical Support Program at Foothill De Anza? It's a win-win-win-win program. Industry donates their computers. Students come into the program. They work in a lab. They upgrade the computers. Microsoft gives us their office for $5. We donate the computers to students who can't afford a computer and sometimes to departments who need computers. And so this industry doesn't have to deal with the e-waste. The students do the internship in the lab till they learn how to get to work on time and so on. Then they do internships in industry. So I was on the advisory board for that. There is one class they have to take, and that was called, at that time, Help Desk Skills for IT Professionals. So I taught that with that title a time or two. And then I said, gosh, these skills are the same as the ones for project management certification. I couldn't get my 20 students every time. By adding a project management certification to it, I filled it up. Last time I taught it, 40 students were in it. Then I became staff and couldn't teach anymore. The way I taught it was I had people line up the first night and say, can you be in a team on Tuesday night? And this is whether it was online, hybrid, or pure face-to-face. We'd form three or four teams. Each team would end up supporting one of the technologies we were using in the class. So one team would support Etudes, another team would support CCC Confer, another team would support PowerPoint, which is an important tool in our class. They would also do a game. That was the project they did for the whole term, was develop a game. And when I started, they hated it. And each one came to me and said, I'm the only person on the team doing any work. I said, that's not possible. There are 4 people on your team, and you're all saying you're the only one doing any work. By the end, they loved their team so much, and some of them are still meeting years later. And they invite me, but it isn't because of me, it's because of the team. And they learned so much about teamwork, innovation, and so on. So you'll see, I did that in order to explain why I'm going to do some of the things in this class. Okay, any quick questions before I move on? Did everyone see the book? Did you get the book all the way over there? The sociology book? So here's the Venn diagram. I love Venn diagrams. I use them all the time in my class for open, digital, and free. Something can be open licensed. That book is open licensed, but it's neither digital nor is it free. Okay? It costs some money to get that book. It costs a lot less. It's affordable, but it is not free. There is a digital version of it, so that version is both digital and open, but not free. It's an e-reader version. There are many free things that are not open and they're not digital. You can go, I was handing out my book earlier. It's not open, it's not digital, but it is free because I couldn't sell it, so now I'm giving it away. So be careful with those. I see lots of comments that imply, especially from reporters and sometimes legislators, that imply that digital and open are the same thing, and they are not. You can go down to Barnes & Noble and get a Jane Austen book. It is open license. It's public domain, but it's still going to cost you a little bit of money, and it's not digital. So we have to remember those distinctions, and we're advocating for open, not for either digital or free. Digital's nice, easier to modify, but you can have an open licensed analog photograph, take it in a dark room and modify it. That's okay because it's open licensed, but it's not digital. Any questions about those distinctions? Okay, doke.
Get the sweet spot in there too.
Yeah, the middle.
Oh, right, open, digital, and free.
Yep, right in the middle, open, digital, and free. Although it's free like a free puppy then, right? There's responsibilities come with a free puppy, right? Yeah, there's, as Judy Baker said yesterday, the cost is less for students but more for teachers when you have open because the teacher has to do more work. So depending on the quality and so on. So OpenCourseWare is what you might assume. It's anything that a person can use, any kind of resource that a teacher uses in a class, with the possible exception of a guest speaker or something like that, or a field trip. But any resources, intellectual resources used in the class can be OpenCourseWare. OpenCourseWare is supposed to be for the teachers. The idea is the teacher goes to the MIT OpenCourseWare, the Stanford OpenCourseWare, and picks and chooses pieces and uses it in his or her class. And we hope that they don't take the whole thing wholesale and just become the waitress delivering the food to the table, right? They have a lot of value add. They have their own way of teaching it. But they have 2 weeks to prepare the class, or if they're an adjunct, 2 days. And they need a photograph. They don't have time. They don't have photographer skills. They need a photograph to use in this class. They need a PowerPoint example or an Excel example and so on. So they go for open licensed material. In the class, in addition to the teacher helping the student and being part, whether it's online, synchronous, asynchronous, face-to-face, the other students help each other too. Not just in a class like mine, but a couple people sit in the back and pretty soon they've formed a study group. And online you can do this with various mechanisms, so on. But an open course means, first of all, open enrollment. Typically no prerequisites, no registration, no filling out long forms, no transcripts. That's what open courses typically mean. Something like peer-to-peer university. If you can type your name on a computer, you're in the class. Okay. There's no credentials required to get in, but at the same time, there's usually no grades and no credit associated with an open course. During the time when people were protesting the academic, industrial complex, various universities around the country had open courses meeting under trees on campus. We're going to get a bunch of people together and talk about poetry. This was open education. It went by the way fairly quickly because of the realities of needing grades and credits to move on. There are 3 types of open courses. You can meet under the tree. You can have it online and be self-paced. Or you can have it self-paced with an instructor or without an instructor. And right now there are many repositories. I'm going to show you a splash diagram of a few. Right now they're providing OpenCourseWare, and at least in the case of the OpenCourseWare Consortium, they assumed the users of that courseware would be teachers. They thought, we'll put up the MIT courseware, the Stanford courseware, and teachers will use it. But OCW says 40% of their users are self-learners. And I don't know if you've tried to learn something hard by yourself. We used to use a rule of thumb, at least in corporate training, 5 hours offline to teach 1 hour if you know the subject. 5 hours prep for 1 hour in the classroom. If it's distance ed, online, 15 hours for every hour. Because it's harder. You have to put more. You can't get up and just do a talk. You got to get it all down. The U.S. Navy, for the distant ed courses, where a sailor gets handed a box of books sent out to sea and told to come back having learned calculus, 100 hours for every hour that sailor is going to spend, the teacher has to spend making the materials perfect. Because if he opens that box and he has a question on the first day, the 6 months are gone. And don't believe these things about all the sailors and soldiers having, constant cell phone access with home. They don't. and even if they could call their teacher, the teacher wouldn't be there, or the person who wrote this material. So making a truly instructorless course is extremely difficult. Very, very difficult to do. And so what's happened, though, is these people are coming to this OpenCourseWare and trying to take the classes without the benefit of an instructor, without the benefit of peers, and so on. So it's a real challenge. So we're going to do a little exercise. I think I get till 3:15. So why am I talking about instructorless classes at this conference? First, because there is no way with our present methods of creating teachers for K-12, for community colleges, for universities, for lifelong learning, to get enough teachers for the billions of people in the world that need educated and want educated. And what's happened in the past is we just only educated some of the people. But increasingly, we want everyone to have the benefit of education. We're working really hard to make it affordable, accessible, but there aren't enough teachers, and there's no way we can produce enough teachers. So we have to find, there's going to be inevitably a lot of self-learning going on. The Khan Academy, one of the open educational resources that has leaped the chasm, 20 million users now. That's an example. We talked earlier about how do we automated farming, we automated manufacturing. We have to automate services too. We have to automate it. Medical care, we have to automate education, we have to automate help desks. We don't like it, stupid telephone thing when you call the bank, but it has to be done because there just aren't enough people to do it all as services, and we can't afford it to be done as services. People will use instructorless courses for a lot of reasons. They want to get into a class this fall. They don't have the prereqs. They'll take an instructorless course in the summer. They'll go talk to the instructor, say, I really did learn this. Let me into the class. And your classes, even if you don't open license them, you don't make them available, they're still going to get learned. People are going to use them without you being there. Because Charlie's going to come to your class, take his notes, and go teach Sally from his notes, or give them to Sally. I've known corporate instructors who have blank PowerPoints. They just pictures on their PowerPoints, and they scribble on them through the class because then they know it's totally useless and someone else will have to pay to take their class because the scribbled notes aren't going to be helpful to anybody else. We hope we aren't all doing that, but you will find that there will be people, if you're a teacher, who will use your material without you even knowing it. And I'll give you an example. I taught a class about a big switching system for Northern Telecom and Bell Northern Research in Canada. And by the time we had taught, in my department, had taught about 200 people, we were really bored. But yet there were all these people who needed to know about the switching system. So we took our slides, we made some notebooks, and we made some audio recordings. And 1,000 people took that course from that rather crude method. But a new employee would get hired, even if we had scheduled multiple courses. That person needed to know the day he started work. He didn't need to wait 6 weeks for a scheduled class. So today we have much better tools, but inevitably there are instructorless classes. So these are the OpenCourseWare, and when I do that boring diagram, I will cover these. Some of these, of course, I'm sure you know about OpenCourseWare Consortium buildup of, I think Una said yesterday, about 250 institutions are now members of it, and that's the higher ed, and now the 100 community colleges have joined. It's all across the map. Each college does them differently. Some of them use a lot of videos, others use more slide share, slide presentations. Some have some homework, some don't. There's often copyrighted material that unfortunately gets blanked out through the course of it. I also discovered that they aren't always free. I was drilling down one and I found an equestrian course in a veterinary, and they said, just put in your credit card here for $600, and then you can see this quote-unquote open courseware. Well, I know open isn't free, but $600 is a lot of money. NICSE is an exciting one with a really cool business model. If you make your course public, then it's free to everyone, but you can make it private. You can teach it privately, and they take their money as a percentage of the tuition for the private classes. And then you can teach it once, then you throw it out in the public. A really nice product, really nice company. The Open University is out of the UK. A lot of our open textbooks on college open textbooks come from the Open. It's also called Open Learn.
I grew up in England, and my mother used to take Open University courses on television.
Yep.
And keep in mind, when I grew up in England, we had 3 channels.
Yeah.
So it was a big deal back then that it was, that they were using that much broadcast time on one of our 3 channels to Open University courses.
Right. Yeah. Closed circuit TV used to be I took freshman economics on closed circuit TV at University of Nebraska a long time ago. Open Learn is a great organization. Open University is a great organization. Saylor is a foundation with a lot of money, and they're busy buying up the copyrights to textbooks. They've got professionals created their classes, but they're very naive. They thought they would just create these classes, and students who couldn't get into colleges would just go take them. And I think they're naive about why students go to college, which is lots of reasons, but jobs is one. Another is socialization and so on. And they don't get that from taking a course and they're not ready to take a course without an instructor. So just recently, and I've got it on the later slide, Saylor just announced a sort of cohort program, a discussion group program to go with their classes to help people know.
As you describe it this way, which is actually different than what my understanding was, so I appreciate that. I keep thinking about the rest of us are so much under the gun of increased accreditation pressures and the U.S. Department of Education regulations about, to try to eliminate false marketing, mostly of the private ed. And then here you have this completely different part of the pendulum providing free education, but there's no accreditation, there's no real oversight, there's not credit. So I guess I'm torn between supporting an initiative like this, which is sort of like the Wild Wild West. There's no sense of quality to that. If I got a resume from an employee who said they took a bunch of courses from Saylor or I wouldn't have any concept of how to judge the quality, the credibility.
So would you rather take an airplane ride with a person in the cockpit who has a PhD in an aeronautical engineering, or a guy who had passed a pilot certificate training?
Well, I prefer one that has tons of hours of flying.
Yeah, well, that's another alternative. Now, and you're right. First of all, the OCW is made up of universities who do have very, very rigorous accreditation, MIT, Stanford, and now these community colleges who've joined. The others have varying degrees of oversight. NROC is part of the UC system. They spend $500,000 to $2 million for each class they develop there for middle school. They test the heck out of them. They test them with multiple. So there's a lot of quality there. Einstein, on the other hand, is not worth the bits that make it up. Okay, I will be very honest about that. It's just thrown up there. Saylor has gone to a lot of trouble to make theirs high quality. It's a question of, do we do government oversight or do we the consumer marketplace? I mean, there's the Good Housekeeping Seal of Approval, there's UL. Not everything has to be done by the government. There are other ways for people to ensure quality. And some of these are, there's government certification behind them. There's other kinds of quality behind them, like hours of flying, or United Airlines has certified the sky, whatever. And then there's others that, as you say, are the Wild West. And that's why when we look at our criteria, that's a very important question. If you're doing this in order to get some credential for your career, you're going to care more about that. If you're doing it to learn how to play the guitar, your test is going to be whether your friends walk out of the room when you start plunking or not, right? Or if you're taking a cooking class, you know, you might. I used to get A's in physical education, and I was the most sports-like person. I hid in the outfield because I was afraid of the baseball. You know? My husband goes to aerobics classes, and he can't tell left from right. But the way they graded physical education when I was a kid was on the rules of soccer. I was really good at the rules, you know, but I wasn't so good at the doing. And I think that traditional accreditation and so on does tend to measure knowledge and not necessarily skill. We're doing e-portfolios now. Kids that are learning, for example, helicopter mechanics, they may not be very good at articulating and talking about the engine of a helicopter, but they can get in and do it. So now we're having a video of them fixing a helicopter, and they put that on their e-portfolio. And that's good enough for the helicopter companies to hire them. So, you know, it's complex. There's no question about it. Any other questions or comments on OpenCourseWare? There's one I'm a little embarrassed and didn't put up here. It's Sophia. There was a grant-funded program at Foothill, sophia.foothill.edu. Unfortunately, nobody's maintained the website. So the president of the college is wrong, the chancellor of the college is wrong, but there's still 10 or 12 really good classes on there. One's in music, one's in graphics, the statistics class Barbara did is up there. So that's another place to look. So here's some of the criteria, and I'm glad you brought this up. You have to ask yourself, why am I taking this class, this InstructorLed class, or why am I looking for OpenCourseWare? Are you doing it, and here I've assumed you're taking it for yourself, but if you're a teacher, you may be looking for OpenCourseWare to use in your class. And then you also need to know about the format. Is it going to be, my husband and I check out a lot of these teaching company lectures, and they're great. Some of them are on video, some are just sound. Berkeley professors, UCLA professors, Robert Greenberg from the Conservatory of Music. They're fantastic, but there's no tests. There's no interaction with us at all. If we didn't love the subject, you know, we would lose interest and fall off. The other thing is, do you want to be able to do it? Do you want to watch it on your television in the nice, comfortable room, or do you want to have to go sit at your computer? That's an important question, too. And the length. Do you want something you can do this Saturday and get it over with, or are you willing to do something 1 week for 52 weeks, or once a week for 52 weeks? And then the level, of course, is also very important. And you've got a really good point about credentials. Does it give you any kind of credit or any proof? And right now, some of you may be aware, anybody have heard of Mozilla badges? Okay, we got at least one person. This was, it's a big deal last fall. Martha Cantor and a bunch of other people got up, gave a big session on September 15, 2011, and we thought Mozilla badges were suddenly going to wipe out the university and college systems. It didn't happen. In fact, the problem was Mozilla couldn't get the technology to work, so most of us who started trying to work on it just gave up. We went off and did our own thing with badges for peer reviewers because we got tired of trying to interface to their software. But there will be badges of all kinds.
What's it supposed to be? What is that?
So the idea of a badge is to give, any organization anywhere can offer badges about anything. They're based on the idea of badges for scouting, but also if you do a pilgrimage in some religions, you get a badge when you arrive at the pilgrimage site. They're an indication that you've learned something.
So it's experience-based.
Well, it could be learning. It could be definitely you took one of these courses and you gave evidence. You had some evidence that you have that video of you fixing a helicopter, and you produced that as the evidence that you got this badge. And the badge offers, and now some of the colleges and universities are starting to put badges into their curriculum as well. Typically think of it as being smaller than a certificate. So if a certificate is 5 or 6 classes, maybe a badge is 1 class type of thing. And it also came out of the gaming industry, the video games, not gambling, but video games. and computer games, where they have found that a lot of the new students are more motivated if there's a game. One of the vendors here was showing just a simple interactive program where there's a progress bar, and he says it makes such a difference. The student is willing to sit there longer because of that progress bar than if that wasn't there.
My understanding of badges are more like a specific skill.
Right.
You have a badge for doing Excel spreadsheets.
Or not tying, or singing.
Yeah.
But it's all across the board. There are people doing big badges and people doing. I mean, one person was going to do a genius badge for not tying. I said, you're really causing a problem when you start calling it a genius for not tying. That cheapens the concept. Okay, I did mention this book, and this is her third business sociology, pop sociology book, called Alone Together, and she has many points she makes. So one of them is, we have a lot of acquaintances but few friends. And she did some studies that show, especially they were all done with women, these women had lots of acquaintances, whether it was in their parenting groups and something, but they had nobody they could really tell their troubles to, if you will. And one of Mitchell Levy, who's my co-director, went to a networking event the other day, and this woman walked up to him and he said, like he usually does, what's on your mind? She says, I have a terrible time making friends. And I've had this experience. I lived in Ottawa. I thought some of these women were my friends, and then I moved to California, and they don't even, I send them a Christmas card, and it comes back. They didn't even tell me they moved. I was like, I thought these people were my friends. And a lot of us have had this experience. If we get laid off from a company, you chum around with these people every day, and then they don't even talk to you after you got laid off. Or people find out they get divorced, and they thought these people were their great friends. Well, it turns out they were friends with their spouse. They just put up with you, sort of thing. So it's a big deal. We've got a warning light sign, Marty. Fran Worth has requested control of your desktop.
Say no.
Okay.
Absolutely no.
Okay, must be like an IT person.
No, it's something.
Okay. So because of that, I decided we should do an exercise, and we're going to have to move quickly because I'm running out of time. So I'm going to do this exercise really quickly, but my slide won't advance now, Marty. I hope she didn't ruin my... Well, I'll just talk because I can't get the slide to advance.
Hey, Fran, advance the slide.
Marnie's working. Well, you said no.
I did say no. I don't know what happened. Let me go back and see if I can find the slide. It did go back to normal mode in PowerPoint. Let's see if I can find the slide. I'll slide it down. One more. Here's the exercise. Okay, on your notepad, on your computer, your pencil, or in your mental notepad, if you could take any class and you had lots of time, lots of money, and you knew you'd get an A, at least a mental A, what would you take? So everybody think of at least 2. And then I need you to pair up. So you two gentlemen, just for expediency, you two, and this lady over there. Sorry.
Lady over there.
Nonsense.
I don't know that lady.
Okay, so think of your list and then share with the person you're sitting next to as sort of quietly. You two got to move. So you come on over here and sit next to this thing.
Someone you have to make so it's fine to see that we
So what do you want to do with it online?
Oh, that's a good point. Let's see if we can. We do have some online people. Can I get to the CCC Confer slide? I can I? So let's just give them a blank slide, or blank, let's give them the whiteboard. So how do I get over to the whiteboard, get rid of the slides and get to the whiteboard? Okay.
Learning or teaching?
Learning.
So is it anything or just for sit here?
Oh, no, anything. That was just to show you could go wild. Okay, so I think this is the whiteboard. Okay, so do they all have whiteboard privileges? Actually, let's just tell them to write it in the chat. So those of you who are online, just put your choice of courses in the chat. So should I do application sharing again, Marty?
You're still in application sharing.
Oh, I am. Okay, so they can still see this slide? Oh, darn, I'm sorry. So people online, please type your choice of courses in the chat. You won't be able to do the conversation with someone else, but maybe you can type comments to each other. Are you done already, guys there? You shared? You guys done? Okay, well, half a minute. Okay, I think we're going to quit now. So share a couple of, at least one of you, each one for each of you. Okay.
Okay. So I would like to study Spanish.
You want to do Spanish, and what was the other one? Just Spanish?
I speak two, but I can speak.
Okay, Spanish, and what was your reason for wanting to learn Spanish?
I'd like to learn the language, and it's a useful language for commerce and estates.
Okay, so this gentleman chose Spanish because he'd like to learn a language, and Spanish is a good one for California, for commerce, and other reasons. And yours?
I want to take a course in civilization taught by other people.
Okay, so this gentleman who teaches civilization wants to take a civilization course. I assume you've taken Kenneth Clark's lectures. You knew Kenneth. Great. What a wonderful class. Oh, he did the one called The Ascent of Man?
Yes.
That's another excellent one. Okay. Great. Okay, so we've got Spanish, civilization, gentleman in the back there under the clock.
I said I'd like to learn some sort of musical instrument. I've got plenty of time and plenty of money, and I'd like to do something that was fun.
Okay, musical instrument, no particular choice?
Bass guitar.
Bass guitar, okay. You don't happen to live in San Francisco, do you?
No.
Because playing an accordion is against the law in San Francisco.
I live in San Francisco. The accordion.
Yeah, they tried to make it the official instrument of San Francisco, and it got voted down. So everybody has these stickers playing an accordion is against the law.
I would like to learn how to play the piano because I think it's relaxing.
Okay, play the piano because it's relaxing. The Baron?
I'll go to the one that I was on hang gliding.
Hang gliding. Wow. Okay.
Wow.
And I promised you an A, and you must, you have to stay alive to get an A. So.
But I want a good instructor.
You better believe, and a good hang glider.
Right. Good equipment, good instructors.
Similarly, I always wanted to learn how to fly.
Okay. Fly an airplane. Okay.
I'd like to learn to track. I mean, it's something that I think I could do, and it's something useful. Track animals.
Oh, track animals. Yeah. So did you see that Gods Must Be Crazy?
I do.
I think it was in Gods Must Be Crazy too that they considered that you were illiterate if you couldn't read track. Good one. You didn't say why on the flying.
Why? I don't know why. I've always wanted it ever since I can remember.
Okay.
There was a period in my life at about the age 12 where if I hadn't gotten into music and got a little longer than that, I probably would have started learning to fly, but I was too young.
And LeBaron, what was your why?
Well, it just seems to be so peaceful. I mean, it's gliding. You don't have the airplane drone and what have you. Just from the various videos that I've seen of the hang gliders, talking about it, just peaceful, and you're just the closest to the bird experience.
Okay, so for our online audience, the man who wanted to learn to fly said he just always wanted to fly. Might have done that had he not got into music. LeBaron wanted to do hang gliding because it's so peaceful. And our final,
Sailing. for sculling, rowing, you know.
Okay.
Because it's great. The rowing is great whole body exercise, and I like being out on the water at the crack of dawn when it's quiet.
Okay. So Martha has either sailing or sculling, and because it's peaceful. Marty.
I have online people.
Okay.
One person, friend, Ruth, wants to learn xylophone and music history.
Okay, I'll repeat that for them. So that was xylophone and music history.
I have another one. Let me find it here. Ballroom dance and investing in bonds.
At the same time? Ballroom dance and investing in bonds, perhaps not at the same time. Okay, excellent.
So, golf, right? You know, talking business they had on the golf.
Well, I would say the xylophone was the most unusual. Would anybody disagree out of all the ones we heard? Okay, I think we owe a book to the xylophone person, so if you can get that person to tell me his name and address, I'll send him a book. Her?
It's a her.
Okay. So just tell her that I owe her an open textbook tweet book. How about in the room? Let's see, what did we have? I think the civilization, wanting to take a civilization class when you teach civilization is pretty unusual, don't you think? So you did it for the mental. Marty, you didn't give us your personal choice. What would your personal choice be? I haven't had time. You haven't time to think about it. Well, you think about it then. Okay, does anyone nominate another person to get a book? I have two left. Marty may get one of them. Did you hear something?
I already got one.
I already got one. You already got one.
Marty won.
Oh, okay, that's right. Oh, that's right. You won earlier. So, okay, we got two.
I like the hang glider.
Well, he already has one.
Oh, he's already got one.
Okay, well, we'll give one to Martha, and we'll give one to you here. And if anybody wants another one, I mean, my partner has hundreds of them. Just send me a note, and I'll send you a book. Unfortunately, I can't send you a sociology book. They're too expensive. I got to send 5 to College of the Canyons. Okay, we're past our time. Smart History is a great online course, smarthistory.org. It's a great one. It's a great Sunday afternoon if you're at all into art. It was recently bought out by the Khan Academy. We funded them. It's all hyperlinked. Sometimes I say hyperactive. And some teachers were pretty nervous with that, so we funded Beth and Stephen to develop some syllabi for community colleges for art history and Western Civ. And it has that European centric. But they've recently, our new art person is into Islamic art, and so she's going to be working and getting Islamic art up there as well. I lost my slides. Oh, that's the evaluation form. Okay. So I'm going to make an announcement. And we are going to offer a mentor-mentee service for OpenCourseWare. So if you want to take an open class, we will set you up. If you want to take one as a student, we'll set you up with a mentor who's willing to help you. Now, in this case, you'll have to be both the civilization student and the civilization mentor. Okay. We hope, so contact me, it's on the slide, I've got business cards, send a book. So you can go on to our Open Doors group, Mentor Cloud. Mentor Cloud gave us a $10,000 platform for free. And you can sign up to mentor in subjects or to be mentored in subjects. That's a word that I do. It is now. To be mentored in subjects. And most of us have signed up for both. You know, I mean, I can mentor people in electrical engineering, but I'd like to be mentored in cooking. That sort of thing. I'm away from the microphone. Okay, sorry. And then the other thing I had announced, I think briefly earlier, Sailors now set up some forums on their site for having people who are taking one of their open courses without an instructor to work together. And that's, I think that peer pressure is the strongest force in the universe. That's how I got my teams to work. They one woman put in 300 hours on my class, and it was peer pressure. Really, it was. She felt like she was holding up the team. She got a particularly difficult assignment. So I think they show it's pretty well known that if you want to quit smoking or lose weight or get more fit, if you have a partner, if you make a commitment, if you write the commitment down, you'll do much better. And it's the same with these open courses. We're past time.
We're past time and my next presenter.
Oh, all right. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks, Marty.